All right, whiskey freaks. This is John Stark. I'm your host, Blind Tasting Podcast. You know all the things. And today, I want to talk about something nobody wants to admit out loud. And that's something we do all the time here on this podcast. Asking the tough questions. If you've heard my interviews, you'll know I ask interesting questions that interest me, and, well, I hope they interest you as well, but it's my podcast. I'm asking tough questions, I'm asking interesting questions, and I'm approaching things from a different, sometimes unpopular perspective, because I figure, why not? Why not use the old brain power to think about what we drink, why we drink it, and who's doing the drinking? Look, we've been seeing a lot of news lately about this stuff over the last, I would say, at least 6 months, if not year or so. And it's the shiny new object. Remember, for a while, it was double oaked. Then it was sherry cask finished. Then it was Amburana finished. Then it was 14-year-old, the oldest, and then 21-year-old, all that, right? Well, now it's Hazmat. And for those of you with infinity bottles, Hazmat means 70% alcohol by volume or 140 proof or higher. And it's considered hazardous material by the FAA or the NTSB or one of those government agencies that won't let you fly with it because it's very explosive. And look, Hazmat Bourbon, let's admit it's kind of cool, right? It might be impressive. It might even be fun once in a while. But Hazmat Bourbon is absolutely terrible for growing bourbon culture. And before anybody loses their mind, relax. I'm not saying Hazmat Bourbon is bad. I'm saying it's bad as a starting point. Because nobody, and I mean nobody, falls in love with bourbon by slamming back a shot of 140 plus proof whiskey just to look cool. Somewhere along the way, we turned bourbon into a toughness contest. Like we're gunslingers at a saloon, tossing back whiskey to show how much hair we got on our chests. And then we shoot it out in the streets at sundown. The higher the proof meant better, meant tougher. More burn meant more respect. Like, look how tough I am, grunting like an ape. And now people think if they're not drinking Hazmat, they're doing it wrong. And that mindset, it's a problem. Or it's going to be a problem if it continues. Now, I've talked about this so many times on here, what it is to be a whiskey freak. It means something. It really means inclusion. It means inviting people, all folks who enjoy something special, bringing them together. Bourbon's supposed to invite you in, not punch you in the face. Let's be honest for a second. Nobody listening to this podcast, nobody started their bourbon journey with a Hazmat bourbon. Not one of us. We didn't start with barrel-proof monsters or limited releases or bottles we had to fight a guy in a parking lot to get. We started with Jim Beam White Label or Wild Turkey or maybe even probably a lot of y'all Maker's Mark. Something affordable, something, dare I say, smooth enough for a newbie to sip on. Something that didn't set your throat on fire and make you call 911. If your first bourbon experience had been a 140 proof Hazmat, you wouldn't be right here, right now. Be honest. You would have taken one sip, you'd have coughed, made a face, maybe spit it out and said, bourbon's not for me. And that's the part nobody talks about. And that's why we're talking about it today. Hazmat Bourbon doesn't create bourbon lovers. It creates spectators. People chasing shock value instead of flavor. It's like Johnny Knoxville of whiskey or Evel Knievel or Rosie O'Donnell. It's just a spectacle for the sake of being a spectacle. Or worse yet, you get people bragging about proof instead of actually enjoying what's in their glass. And when new drinkers see that culture, what do they think? They think bourbon is harsh and aggressive and not meant for everybody. So they stay away from it. Or worse, they force themselves into it and decide the whole category just sucks. And don't we have a big enough problem right now, guys? Alcohol drinking participation among U.S. adults, talked about this here on the pod before, it fell 4 percentage points from 2024 to 2025. That's in 1 year. That's 4%. Now, are we in a free fall? Probably not. But when you couple that with weed and gummies and the THC drinks taking share away from bourbon and whiskey, we really got a problem here. So I beg you, please don't push the hazmat. In my opinion, that's how you lose people before they ever get started. And look, I'm guilty as charged here, kids. I've done it. Well, sort of. I had a buddy over not that long ago, and I got fired up. I was so excited to have him over. I got a little silly, and I started pouring some high proofers. I didn't pour him any hazmats, but we got close, and it struck me after he went home. I think I pushed him into a territory he was not comfortable with. And I had that moment where I went, dumbass. He wasn't loving it. He was just going along with it, nodding and smiling. And he's just a super polite guy. I wasn't smart enough to recognize in the moment to read the room. Now, let me be perfectly clear here. Hazmat Bourbon has its place for experienced drinkers, for people who understand what they're tasting, for folks who want to explore extremes and appreciate how wild whiskey can get. I say have your cowboy whiskey. Enjoy a pour of your Wyatt Earp 13 or what's that, 163 proof rocket fuel. Hazmat whiskey, though, it's not a gateway. It's not a welcome mat. It's the deep end of the pool, and you don't throw beginners into the deep end of the pool and expect them to love swimming. I have a story from my childhood I might tell you one day about the deep end of the pool. That's for a different episode. But I digress. If you want to grow bourbon, guys, you start people slow. You give them balance before intensity, and you let them understand the sweetness, the oak, the vanilla, the spice, and you let them learn what they like before you hand them something that tastes like a barrel caught on fire out in the Pacific Palisades. Oh, too soon? Guys, this is how you create lifelong bourbon drinkers. And it's not by daring somebody to chug a hazmat whiskey just to prove they belong in your club or are man enough to be part of your dad gang. If hazmat bourbon becomes the face of bourbon, we're going to shrink the tent, not grow it. We're going to turn bourbon into a flex or a spectacle instead of a pleasure that we enjoy so much. And frankly, that would be a damn shame for a spirit that's supposed to be shared and enjoyed and savored. So sure, drink your hazmat, enjoy it, respect it. I respect it. But don't pretend it's the starting line. Because truth is, every one of us started slow, easy, and approachable. And that's exactly how the next generation of whiskey freaks should start too. You agree with me? You disagree? You don't give a damn? Hit me up on the socials, or you can DM me. You can even email me, because I'm old, at blindtastingpodcast@yahoo.com, because I'm living in the 90s. Anyway, guys, thanks for tuning in today, and please don't forget to like, share, and most importantly, subscribe. The alcohol, the podcast, we're all being shadow banned, so to speak, by Meta and Facebook now. Please share everything I post on socials. It really helps spread the word, because we're not going to get it done organically anymore. It's going to have to be done by you guys. So also, if you're listening on Apple, do me a solid and hit subscribe on Spotify and YouTube and iHeart and Amazon too. It helps confuse and mildly threaten that rat bastard internet algorithm that shows podcasts to more folks. So please do that for me too. Spreading the word really matters now more than ever, especially with the nonsense Zuckerberg is pulling. Guys, I want to thank you, as always, for listening to the Blind Tasting Podcast, your number one attitudinal bourbon destination.